How are you doing?
I'm doing so well, Athena. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're so glad to be chatting with you today. So tell us a little bit, what has this quarantine been like for you? What have you been up to? How has life been for you?
Well, like for a lot of other people, I didn't know what to expect, just rolling with it from day to day to begin with. But when I realized that I could still work from home and that that was actually going to be something that we were able to survive as far as work wise, that was great. And then, of course, my husband as well. We were both able to work from home. I kind of settled into this really quickly, and I went from being this super like social and like I'm here and I'm here and I'm out and I'm to being totally fine just being at home boring.
Wow, wow. Wow. Is this becoming our new lives or what? I'm thinking like we're just becoming used to it now. Now it's just like the new normal until, you know.
Well, I like to think that I'm pretty adaptable to whatever's going on, but this has forced us all to adapt,
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us, if we're fighting it, it probably isn't going very well, but if you're
Yeah.
just kind of going with it, then I think it's going okay.
Exactly. And tell us, so you have normally like offices that you work with clients and everything like that? Tell us a little bit like normal life. What is it usually like for you and what type of clients do you have?
Sure. So in my private practice, it's called Houston Relationship Therapy. We have offices in the Heights area of Houston, which is right in the middle of Houston, and then we have an office out in the Katy area, which is out west.
Mm.
And so we're able to serve clients from all over.
Yeah.
We're licensed, all of us are licensed in Texas, so we're able to see Texan clients for psychotherapy, but we can do coaching from pretty much all over the world. And I'm also licensed in California, and I'm about to be licensed in New York State as well.
Oh,
So I can
wow.
see clients from there as well for psychotherapy purposes. But yeah, we have clients and offices where we see people in session and in the office, but most of the time right now we're doing everything virtually, which is great for me because my schedule makes it to where I'm all over the US.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this way I don't have to like stop seeing clients while I'm away.
That's right. It might be beneficial for you because now, like we said, it's more worldwide people and not just Texas. And yeah, that's
I love it.
awesome.
I
That's
really
awesome.
think
Well, tell us a little bit more in detail. What type of people do you work with and what type of advice do you give them or like what do they come in for? What's usually the requests?
Yeah, so the vast majority of the people that I see are either individuals or couples who are experiencing intimacy issues. And that might be emotional intimacy and not really feeling close or connected with their partner emotionally or physically. So they're not really able to click up or get on the same page when it comes to physical intimacy. That's where I step in. We also definitely see premarital counseling as well. And we're able to see all sorts of issues. And we do. We have the qualifications, we have the training to do all that. But as far as what I tend to see the most is couples who are experiencing that disconnect with intimacy.
Hmm. Is anything too hard for you? I always wonder this. Like, can you pretty much solve everyone's problems or is anything difficult for you ever?
That's funny. I don't know that everything has a solution
Mm.
that that aligns with what the clients want.
Mm-hmm.
So like, so if I have a couple who's coming in and their entire goal is to stay together, depending on what kind of skill sets they have, depending on what kind of goals they have, they may be healthiest apart. And we
Oh,
won't
okay.
see that until we go through, at least, probably around 6 months to figure out, what it is that they're really capable of.
Yeah.
I do find that that's the minority. The minority of the couples and individuals that I see feel like they don't get the outcome that they expected or hoped
Mm.
for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm glad that it doesn't happen all the time, but I am also glad that there are people who are open to understanding that being together may not be the healthiest
The
thing for
healthiest.
you,
Yeah.
or setting out to have that initial goal isn't what is ultimately going to be best for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting idea that like does everything have a solution? Sure, I think everything has a solution, but does that solution look like what you
Mm.
initially wanted? Probably not.
That's true. That's true. And I don't know how long have you been doing this? How many years?
I've been seeing clients since 2003.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I want to ask you, do you notice a difference in love and relationships ever since 2003 and even before that towards now? Because relationships have changed, society has changed, now we have the internet. Tell me, have your clients changed people, love?
Yeah, I think I've noticed that there are trends that go more towards people who are wanting like immediate connection with people. Like they
Mm-hmm.
just expect to have a spark they expect to have everything going really well right from the beginning. It's almost like there's not enough patience anymore. There isn't the patience to see how things go. It's more like, oh, you upset me, I'm done.
You're
I'm
done.
done.
Yep.
Let's move to something else. Don't
Yeah.
waste my time.
Yeah.
And of course, there are some times where the level of disrespect or something, you do need to move on quickly. But I find that a lot of people move on quickly, and they're just like going through like almost like hamsters on a wheel, just like go, go, go. And I'm going on this date, and oh, but I didn't like the way he did his hair, so no. And now I'm going on this date, and she didn't thank me right away after I bought her meal. Like, it just seems like people really expect perfection from each other more now than before.
Yeah.
Before, I feel like in the first decade of my practice, I felt like a lot of people were coming in because of, just really having tried all kinds of things, and okay, now we can't figure it out on our own, let's do it. Now I feel like people are coming in with more, with not all the time, but sometimes just the sense of like, just fix it now.
Yeah. And then, like you said, they just give them the towel and they're done.
Yeah, like, what have you tried? And they're like, well, nothing really. I'm like, okay, all right, well, I mean, and it's funny because there's a balance between wanting people to come in at the beginning of an issue versus like 20 years down the road.
Right.
But I mean, at least try something at home, try something on your own. What's happening is that we're all overworked, and we're all kind of allotting a tiny little sliver of our time and energy towards dating. Who are in the field and in the dating pool, I feel like they're trying to make it to where it's very like, okay, on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, I'm going on these dates and this and that, and then it's like nothing, and then they're setting up dates to do it. It all feels like you're auditioning.
Yes.
And if you have one bad first impression, like, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
You're never looking at this person ever again. Whereas if you meet somebody through like a group outing, which right now is so difficult to do, but in typical traditional times, you meet somebody in a group outing, and then you happen to come across them again, and then and it's almost like more like a like you're a hiring process.
Yeah.
Multiple interviews, right? But yeah, I think that these days the real difference is that people are just like, first impression means everything.
Yeah.
Nobody gives anybody a second chance or a second look.
Do you think, like we said, unfortunately, again, the internet, I keep saying it 100 times because it's true. Do you think everybody, like, there's an image now, like we said, that they've created and kind of have like that image that every girl needs to look like that, and if they don't, they won't take them? Do you believe?
Right. I do feel like there's definitely a lot of FOMO happening. There's a fear of missing out. It's the fear of, if I settle down with this person, am I settling?
Yes.
Because who knows if the next day I would have swiped and there was somebody else who has this, has better that. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Yes, there will always be someone who has a better this or a better that, or does this better or does that. That's the spice of life.
Yeah.
You're always going to be able to do that. But if you want a commitment, if you want a long-lasting partner, it's not about always looking for who can do something better. It's what can the two of us co-create that works for us.
Right. And where can you find commitment in today's society? I think that's what a lot of people want to ask, because obviously married at first sight, everyone goes there with intentions because they're sick of not finding the right people, and they want actual partners, and they find them because you guys are able to do that for them. So how do people, whether they go on the show on Married at First Sight or not, where's the best place to find a committed partner in today's society?
Yeah, well, I think that the best thing that I'm seeing both on the show and on trends in my office or just in society is people who are just refreshingly authentic. If you are yourself, I truly believe you're going to attract people that you will be attracted to, that have just good vibes about them, that have positive and probably similar outlooks on life. Because all of this Photoshop, this just everything to change the way that you look or what your first impressions are like and all of that, you're basically attracting or baiting the people that want that. And then it's like, oh, how are you going to do that forever? Because believe me, as a mom of two, you can't. Like, every is not every day for me.
I know, it's hard.
I enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun, and I like to, present different sides of myself, but this is, I mean, I'm wearing pajama pants.
Oh,
Like,
see? That's the best way. I know.
you have to be yourself and feel comfortable in your own skin. And if you're constantly putting on a disguise
Yeah,
or a costume,
yeah.
well, then who are you attracting really?
That's right. That's right.
I think a lot of times, especially with men, I'm not going to pigeonhole every man, of course not, but I think with a lot of men, you've seen those T-shirts and memes. It's like game over. You see a groom and a bride, and it's like game over. And I think that a lot of men shy away from the idea of having that long-lasting commitment because they do feel like it's the end of a lot.
That's true.
And to some extent, it is. I mean, as a wife, I know that there's an end to certain things, but it's also the beginning of so much. Life for happily married people, they will tell you they can't imagine having a more fulfilling life because they've picked somebody and because they've worked at co-creating this life together, right? It's not that somebody had to give up 95% of their life to be married.
Yeah.
And if you have, I mean, that's on you. Again, if you're bending over backwards to be married to somebody and your soul is being drained or is empty, I feel like that's on you, and you need to get help for that. But for the most part, I think that marriage enhances life, and relationships enhance your life. And there's a fear that it will be the end of all the good in a single life, when the truth is, I think most people just want to bring their two single lives together and then just witness each other's lives and be each other's partners and hold their hands through it.
That's right. And I think, though, the number one issue a lot of people have is commitment. I just think, like we said, commitment is just like, but you can't make a person say, okay, stay in my life. I see a future with you. You like me, I like you. So that's, I think, the problem with maybe society's dating and just that commitment factor. So that's kind of the problem, I think, with everyone's dating.
I find that it must be very, very hard to try to be all of the things that society is telling you to be within this construct of marriage.
That's right. Yep.
But it's entirely possible.
That's right. There's hope, of course. What do you think, out of everybody that you've worked with, clients or just people that you've seen, what makes really a relationship or a marriage really work? What are some factors that just makes it work?
So short-term communication. Okay, so if you're not communicating, there's no way your partner is ever going to know what you really need, or you're going to know what your partner needs. So across the board, I would say communication, open and honest communication, right? And then long-term, I think it's the ability to accept that they are bringing what they're bringing and they have certain skill sets, and they need to accept yours and you need to accept them. And that's just part of life. If you're going to be on a team with someone, you're going to have to accept. It's not always about change, improve. So the ability to have that want for change and being open to that, but then also saying, like, no, certain things just aren't going to change, and I need to work around it. I need to work with it. I'm not going to just butt up against it all the time and just hit a brick wall.
And what do you think about relationships that, like, a lot of people give more and then the other person gives this much? Do you think there always has to be a balance, or how do you reach that level?
So I think it's always, you've probably heard the cliche, it's giving 100%, 100 and 100, not 50-50.
Right.
But the truth is, I do think that in a lot of relationships, one person overfunctions.
Yeah.
And that creates resentment. And that's a vast majority of people that are coming in to see me. It's because they are overfunctioning and it's creating resentment. And they've either trained their partner to be on the receiving end of that overfunctioning, or their partner saying, like, hey, I need to be able to step up and step into this relationship. You need to back up so you can give me space to do that. And that can be a source of conflict for a lot of couples as well.
Well, a lot of couples that you work with, is everybody pretty willing, both sides of the party, to kind of improve? I mean, obviously coming to see you, they have to be willing.
Well, you would think, right? You'd
assume.
And early on in my career, I feel like I saw a lot more people who were very begrudgingly coming into counseling. But as more and more people have seen kind of what I do and what I'm like, and my TV persona isn't all that different than who I am. Now, on the show, my role is different than who I am in the office. I'm a therapist in the office. I'm more of an advice giver or kind of guide on the show. So I'm definitely not, I don't tend to say things in the exact same way on camera that I do behind the scenes. And we have more of a relationship, a client-therapist relationship in the office. And on screen, it's like we jump in and out. We're like there when they need us. And, you know, it's very much kind of like off and on, off and on.
Yeah.
So it's very different. But I think a lot of people are starting to see that they will come to see me because they truly think like we'll be able to click and I'll be able to help them. And that's happened with more and more exposure and with more and more like opportunities to show people what I do and how I can help. I think a lot of people are like really wanting to come in versus before when it was like, we're just going to try things out. And then they come in and they're like, oh, okay, this isn't that.
Yeah.
And I will say that more and more men are starting to be much more open to counseling. And therapy in general, I think more and more men are realizing that it's not about like, just, cracking you open and like making you just spill everything and be uncomfortable and vulnerable like all the time. No, it's much more of a dance than that. So they're less and less likely to avoid counseling and therapy because they realize like this is only going to be helpful. And as more and more people come out and say, oh yeah, I go to therapy, they're like, oh, okay, it normalizes it. So people will be like, yeah, I'm going to try it. Why not? I mean, I can't do this on my own.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good. That's very good. And then obviously, okay, back to like another modern dating question. Why do men, they start off, they're like, oh, I like you so much. I like you. They'll stick in for, I don't know, from like 2 days to maybe 2 months per se. And then they just cut it and I don't like you anymore. What goes through their mind that just says, you know what, they're like, they'll even maybe throw out things like, oh, I want to marry you. I want to have kids with you. Why do they change their minds? And it could be either role. Like a woman could say it, a man, vice versa.
Sure.
Why do they do that?
I think it's possibly one of two things. Of course, it could be anything. But one or two things that I've noticed is that if you continue to date others while you're dating one person, you're comparing constantly. And if the person tends to make you feel better than about a particular issue, then you might say, oh, bye-bye. Yeah. It's almost like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Now let me try this. Let me try this. But imagine if it was, like 30 bears.
Yeah.
300 if you're online. You can eat at once. Like, I think it really does cater to this kind of addictive, let me try this and let me try this and let me sample this. I mean, we want samples, right?
Of course.
So the whole like free sampling of different things just to try it on and see how it works.
Yeah.
I think that's working against us.
Yeah.
The other part of it is that I think it's possible that a lot of people are they're worried about how a relationship is actually going to fit into their lives when they're prioritizing family or friends or work or, spirituality, like, and their individuality. It's kind of hard to imagine the work that goes into a relationship. All you can kind of see is like, I know it's work. Everybody says it is. And it takes time and money and energy forever. And then I think they get cold feet about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, am I really ready to do that? Like, I just wanted to stay home and be alone, but I can't tell my partner that because then they'll get their feelings hurt. Or it might be something even more like simple as in, I don't want to have to invite my partner to this wedding that I'm going to, so let me just break up. I mean, you never know.
That's true, but why do people take the easy way out? A partner could benefit their life and add, like we said here, the marriage that you said even, it betters the person. It gives them more life to their life. It doesn't always have to be a bad thing. So I don't know why they don't see the addition. Yeah,
that's a good point, though. It depends on who you have around you. For instance, if all of the marriages around you stink, or they're constantly at odds, or this person's getting divorced and that person's moving out and this person cheated, and that, I mean, that's not really a great thing to want to look forward to.
Yeah, right.
We tend to do that as parents. We I'm always telling people, especially women who are pregnant, like, look, try to only listen to people who have had good birthing experiences and have had happy, positive pregnancies, because otherwise you're going to get more anxious, more fearful.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be like, what am I doing? And it's going to damper your experience of the pregnancy
Absolutely.
and kids. It's the same thing when you are surrounded by people who are really unhappy at their jobs. You start to feel like, oh man, I love my job. I can't really talk about that because I'm not going to relate to them. Same thing with marriage. Try to surround yourself with people who have positive experiences, who
Yeah.
are thriving, who are striving to be better together, and who aren't just serial daters if
Yeah.
that's not what you want.
Yeah. But you think, like we said, if the person really comes in meeting the person for the first time and like is practically love at first sight per se, or just likes them so much, how can you just trade them in? That's what my mind can't even like. How do you trade a person in if you like them so much? Just as you said, like here, work comes in the way or other priorities. How do you just throw them out if that could be your soulmate per se? They just really don't care.
It just depends on what their priorities are that day.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's a sign of immaturity to
Yeah.
not be willing to commit to somebody,
Yeah.
and other times it's just not the right timing. But
Right.
I think if you know it's not the right time for you, don't date. What's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of people who are willing to hook up with you. Don't try to hook somebody's heart into this, you know?
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about soulmates or kind of like destiny meant to be couples, people? Do you believe in stuff like that? Do you think people are meant to be?
I think that there are definitely signs from the universe that somebody is meant to be someone special in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my husband and I, we first dated when we were in middle school. He was my first kiss. I was his
Oh,
first love, and we ended up, you know, being uh, dragged apart by circumstances like, we were kids, so my parents were like, "You're going to an all-girls school. Get away from
oh
him." Um,
my God.
but, and then we lived our own lives. We experienced lots of experiences separately, and then we re-met and eloped 10 years later. And I truly believe that that was just the way that things were meant to be. And now we've been married for over 13 years, have 2 kids, and it just feels like he's always been my person, um, whether I knew it at the time or not. But as far as whether or not we're soulmates, we were just talking about that late last night. We were talking about how there's like this sense of we just feel like we're the right person for each other.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it was definitely like this late night kind of like, are you still up? Yeah, I'm still up. And we were just talking, and I mean,
Oh.
it's nice to know that we're on the same page about
Yeah,
it. But
yeah,
what's even
yeah.
nicer is that he was sharing that with me.
That is
It's one
that.
thing to think it, it's another thing to verbalize
Yes,
it.
yes.
So
And
it's just always working on trying to stay on the same page.
and you guys 13 years later, I mean, that should be like a beginning topic you guys talk about. Like, are we meant to be? It's so nice. I love hearing this 13 years later you guys are talking about it now. And that's love to me. That's like, wow, wow. That's
Well,
amazing.
yeah, and it takes work. I'm always telling people like we can always pick each other apart. We can always bring out the
Yeah,
negatives. We can always tear somebody down. Though I think what's harder, but what's more rewarding is when we can build each other up.
that's
Whether
right.
it's a friend, a colleague, or your partner, always look for the best in them. But what I'm saying is, if you're with somebody and you don't look for their good traits or what they add the value to your life, you're not doing the work that it takes to be in a long-term relationship. You
Right.
can do that short-term, but it won't be long-term.
Right. With you and your husband, I'm sorry, because I love your love story. That's so cool. Did you guys circle back like we said? So how did that happen? How did you guys reconnect if you guys were living separate lives?
Yeah, there was a reunion of sorts for our school,
Okay.
and we went, and it was just like his grade and my grade because we were all pretty close, and it was just really interesting there was kind of like this, wait a minute. And by the end of the night, we were just talking. I mean, obviously nothing was going on romantically or anything, but it would just felt like, oh my gosh, we were just really still interested in how are you doing and this and that.
Uh,
And then months later, it was elopement time because that was
wow.
so it was, yeah, it's interesting how that worked out. I don't know that I love it when people say that they're going to elope because truly I believe that it should be about the marriage, not the wedding. I think a lot of people experience these huge weddings, but don't necessarily think about what happens after. So they have their dream wedding, but not their dream marriage. And
Right.
that's why the premarital counseling program, because of like,
Right.
people aren't focusing on the
The
marriage.
marriage.
The guy,
You're right. You're
the
absolutely
wedding
right.
is one day, but the marriage should be forever.
Forever. Yes. Okay, 2 questions. Do you believe it was fated for you and him? And then also, secondly, why did you guys elope?
So the first question, do I believe it was fated? I'm not like a very cosmically inclined kind of person,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, yes. Like,
Oh.
I guess, like, my heart says yes, my head says, I don't know. Um, but I do. And I believe that part of the reason that I think it was somewhat fate that we would end up together is because we both really wanted to be together.
Yeah.
Like, that was
Yeah.
back round one, and now what we call round two. We both really wanted to be together. Now,
Yeah.
we were very young. I was in 6th grade, he was in 7th grade. So did we know then that this was going to be something? No. And you know what? I'm glad that we had time apart, because we were able to grow into who we were, go through all of those like teenage and college years separately, to grow into the people we really wanted to be. Because I do think that if you're with someone at a very young age and just stay with that person forever, there's a chance that you might be stunted in growth in certain ways.
That's right.
Lots of couples do really well with that, but I think it's possible that you can kind of, something that Bennett said in a recent episode was that he's always cultivated who he is based off of who he has chosen as a partner. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that happens with certain couples. If you end up together, it's kind of hard to let your wings fly and spread to fly if you feel like, okay, well, I know that we're in this kind of cage together.
Yeah.
So it's just something to consider. And as far as why we eloped, he did not want a huge wedding. He's not into having attention or anything like that. I had already had experiences, with that sort of thing. So I didn't really need all that either.
Yeah.
And it ended up, being just beautiful. And later on, when our kids were older, we took them back to where we got married. It's like this open air chapel in the hill country in Texas, and it was just gorgeous, and it was really special to take them back. And it's really nice. It was also really nice to save a lot of money.
Yeah, well, of course. That's nice. But see, it proves that you're in it.
Honey.
Where did you guys go for your honeymoon?
We went to Costa Rica.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. So
awesome.
nice. Like that, getting eloped and then your honeymoon is just as amazing. So you have such a nice story to tell. I love it. Beautiful.
We work at making sure that our marriage is something that we can be proud of. Somebody asked me the other day, like, do you think that it creates pressure on you as a therapist and as somebody on TV to have a marriage that you're proud of? And I'm like, I don't know that it creates added pressure, because as it is, like, I really want this to work. I want to be able to have the on-air presence. I want to be able to have my private practice. I want to be able to have my dreams and hopes and my family and my, of course, my marriage.
Yes.
So already always hoping to be able to have it all. And if something threatens the marriage or threatens my time with family, I'm pretty quick to like buck up and say, nope.
That's good.
So I'm always, because I want to be able to have it all, I recognize there are certain things that if there are threats there, boom, take them out.
Wow, that's great. And it takes a lot of strength to do that, because other people could just, oh, okay, that's great.